Motorsports Park just outside of Birmingham, Alabama is stop number 2 on the IZOD IndyCar Series. And today it's knockout qualifying featuring last season's top road racer, Will Power, and the defending series champion Dario Franchitti, who started off the season in St. Pete in championship form. For drivers of the IZOD IndyCar Series, 2 weeks ago at St. Petersburg, where they qualified became a blessing or a curse.
We have contact and a huge crash.
At the start, Will Power and Dario Franchitti narrowly escaped the mayhem that swept up half of the drivers from the Firestone Fast Six. And in the new double-file restart system, drivers can no longer afford to be followers in these packs, but must become the leader. The time to push and go for that extra tenth of a second, to time a perfect lap, and set themselves apart from the field is here. Qualifying from Barber Motorsports Park starts now. Welcome to IZOD IndyCar Qualifying presented by Peak. I'm Bob Jenkins. Glad you could be with us for the start of our season here on Versus. Before we get going, let's send it down to Kevin Lee on pit road.
Thank you, Bob. It was not much of a surprise to see Dario Franchitti and Will Power finish 1-2 in the season opener at St. Pete 2 weeks ago. Not only did they stay out in front, they stayed ahead of the trouble. The chaos, lap 1, turn 1 of the season opener collected top names like Briscoe, Castroneves, Dixon. The highest finisher of that group of 3, Dixon, came home in 16th. So many were coming away from the season opener not feeling good about their start to the season.
Time to go racing in 2011.
Will Power in the front. Dixon looks to the inside, and Marco Andretti goes over the top. Andretti is on his lid. There are 5 cars that not make it through.
Give the Scotsman the 27th win of his career.
That's the way to do it. That's the way to do it.
Dario, he picks up right where he left off after winning the championship last year. Is this a sign of things to come?
Well, it may be a sign of things to come. He avoided the wreck on lap 1, led all but 6 laps last week. When was the last time you were that dominant, Dario?
Indy last year was pretty good, but weekends like that are few and far between. So when you get them, you gotta enjoy them and take everything you can.
Track position is everything here. So how important are the next few minutes in qualifying?
Qualifying is very, very important. Driving the Clorox car this weekend, and we've got to do our best in this next sort of hour and a half to try and get it up front. But it's so close with the field and the IndyCar series now that just a small mistake, just trying to get that extra tenth, can lose you 2 or 3 tenths and stop you advancing to the next round. So it's an important part of the weekend coming up.
And on top of all that, he told me he's still trying to figure this place out a little bit. Let's head over to Lindy Thaxton.
Will Power at the top of the speed charts yesterday, but you told me you really weren't that happy with the car. How do you feel after the morning warm-up?
Yeah, I think we need to find something a little bit more. The car wasn't definitely not perfect this morning. I think the change we made will be good, but it's going to be tight in qualifying, no question.
Based on what you learned at St. Pete qualifying, how does that affect your strategy today?
I think everyone basically is going to use reds. I don't think anyone will take the risk on blacks because we don't know enough about the road course tyre to take that risk. So that's my strategy.
Will Power, the defending pole sitter here, Kevin.
Thank you, Lindy. 2010 was an incredible year for Will Power on the road and street courses. In 9 events, he won 7 poles and finished no worse than 4th. 2 weeks ago, Will opened the season on the pole and finished 2nd. Now let's send it back to Bob Jenkins upstairs.
We have a new face and voice in the booth this year. We welcome Wally Dallenbach Jr. to our coverage. Wally, of course, has experience in all kinds of race cars, including Indy cars, and Jan Vikas, who's been with us for the past 2 years. And Wally, in terms of qualifying, this is a different animal than just about any place we go.
I don't know about you, Jan, but qualifying always got me the most nervous. And this place is at a premium because track position is so important because it's so hard to pass on this place. So you're going to see, and the tightest field, you hear Dario talk about how close the times were yesterday. They They were very, very close. A tenth of a second could be either in or out in that top group. So I think we're going to see a lot of exciting driving today because it's so important. This is probably one of the most important places to get a great starting position.
And Wally, you heard the drivers, in particular Will Power, talk about the strategy, and that's because there's new qualifying rules this season. Last year, you'd be conservative, go out the beginning of qualifying on the Firestone Blacks, the more conservative tire. Then, if you felt under pressure, you put on the Firestone Reds, the red sidewall faster tires, and protect yourself and transfer. This year, no choice. Whatever you roll out of the pits, you have to use that in the entire qualifying segment. So you heard Will hint, he doesn't think anyone yet this season is brave enough to try anything but reds, but the trick, don't use them too long, Bob, because you want to save them for the next session.
And specifically the rules for our qualifying session here today. There will be 3 rounds, round 1, 2 groups, 15-minute session with the top 6 in each group advancing. Round number 2 will have 12 cars, and it's been shortened to 10 minutes with the top 6 advancing to the Firestone Fast Six, a 10-minute session in which we will determine the Peak Pole Award winner. There will be 1 set of tires, as Jan said, primary or alternate, allowed per segment. And so, as we begin our season here on Versus, it is once again Dario Franchitti against Will Power. We'll start qualifying in just a moment.
IZOD IndyCar qualifying on Versus is presented by Peak Performance Products. When you peak, you win. And by IZOD, the official apparel of the IZOD IndyCar Series, available at Macy's.
Welcome back to Barber Motorsports Park, and we are underway with qualifying. And I don't know about you guys, but it was a long, cold winter where I was, and I am so glad the season is underway, and we are now following Simona Di Silvestri, who had just an incredible race at St. Petersburg. Very impressive performance.
She did. She's on her flyer right now. She's got an open track in front of her, which is great, which you want to see during qualifying. And you've really got to get after it. Here's a great shot. Really got to drive these cars hard at this place. There's no really areas to get much rest here. It's a very busy racetrack that you have to attack.
And what the teams weigh is, as Wally just said, clear track is obviously fantastic, but the later in the session, the more rubber on the track, and it's faster. So you always play that balance. Do I want speed of the racetrack, or do I want clear racetrack?
Off of turn number 15 onto the front stretch here.
It's a pretty good lap. 13.5.
Yeah.
Now, Jan, the question is, okay, now that they've told her she's run a 13.5, is it one of those deals where, okay, come in and let's sit, or do you try to get another one right away?
I think you want first to put one in the bank, so to speak. You want one in case you have drop a tire off or something like that. You want a banker lap, as some people call them. Then you really put the hammer down. If it doesn't work, then you abort, because you'll have the data on your steering wheel, pull onto pit lane and save the tires.
And here is J.R. Hildebrand, a rookie here at the IZOD IndyCar Series this year. And right behind him is Simona, who in St. Petersburg started 17th and finished in 4th position.
Let's see if Simona can improve on this lap. It looks like she has stayed after it, Jan.
Now the timing line is coming up here. It's just before pit entrance.
Yeah, wow, nice lap. 12.6, so she picked it up almost a second.
She's actually the only one who has actually turned in a lap. Remember, this is a 15-minute session, the only 15-minute session in qualifying this year, with the other 2 now being 10. There's turn number 1, and last evening, yesterday afternoon, E.J. Viso had a rather hard crash there in turn number 1, but he was out for practice this morning. Here is the number 18 car, driven by another rookie in the series, James Jakes, who finished 15th at St. Petersburg 2 weeks ago. This is his initial appearance here at Barber Motorsports Park.
Doesn't look like he's on his lap yet. Looks like he's still trying to get those tires up to temperature.
And of course, he had his first IndyCar experience here. He was able to do the open test. So for him, at least, being a rookie, haven't not raced here, but at least had a fair bit of track time for the test to get acclimated to the car. So he has at least some familiarity with this track.
One of 2 cars from the Dale Coyne stable this year. His teammate is Sebastian Bourdais, the many-time champion of open wheel racing. You know, as I rode around this track, and I didn't do it quite as fast as you did yesterday, Wally, in the 2-seater, but there's quite a bit of elevation change here.
There really is. I mean, and you can really tell there's a couple places where when you get down into a corner, like right there, you can really feel the downforce and the pressure on the car. And then there's a part like that hill where you can actually feel the car get light. So you're awfully busy around this racetrack. The car, you know, you upsets, you get grip, you lose grip.
Let's get down to Lindy Thaxton.
Graham Rahal says the information from his recent test here really didn't seem to be working this weekend, so they made big changes. He said, quote, the biggest changes I've ever seen, and I think it worked. Well, this morning in the morning warm-up, he ran 4th. On his side this weekend, Tim Keen, strategist for Chip Ganassi's Grand Am team. Graham and Tim won the Rolex 24 together back in January. Marty?
Well, Indy Group 1 is chock full of fast drivers, including Ryan Briscoe, one of the fastest this morning in warm-up. He told me the car was better, the best it's been all weekend in warm-up, but still not exactly where he wants. He said they've been bouncing around one issue. That's the car being too loose. He said especially when he's down braking going into the corners, that's when it's very loose for him. And he said the one thing he's worried about, the sun's coming out, making it a little bit warmer, which in theory should make this track a little slicker as well. Briscoe getting ready to go out right now. He said the biggest difference maker, the reds. That's going to make a big difference, as much as a second faster than the blacks today.
On board with Will Power now.
And pretty fast yesterday.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And you could clearly see that he was making a gap there because, as we've talked about, as you get over the top, here is the timing line to start a lap. So he was way off power, talking to the crew, finding out, find me a gap, because I want not only what Simona De Silvestro had, clear track, I also want one with some rubber on it.
The pole sitter at St. Petersburg, who ended up finishing in 2nd position, having a rather up and down day during the St. Petersburg event. Up over the rise here.
Making some adjustments here.
Yeah, he's not quite.
I don't think he's really on his flyer
doesn't have
yet.
the hammer down yet. Now, I think for Will Power, it's a situation where you feel it in a couple of corners, and then you just make one real concerted effort at it, and then save the tires.
Top of your screen, you can see how they line up right at the moment, with only 7 cars having turned in a time so far. Simona De Silvestro is the quickest, followed by Hildebrand, Kimball, Ryan Hunter-Reay, Jakes, Mira, Vitor Mira, Oriol Servia, Simone Pagenaud, who is making his initial start in an IZOD IndyCar Series event, and Elio Castroneves. Way off the track there, coming out of corner number 15. So first session qualifying is underway here at Barber Motorsports Park. Back on Versus with knockout qualifying here at Barber Motorsports Park, and we're on board with Will Power, who did move to P1 just a few seconds ago with a lap at 1:11.6. Dario Franchitti has now moved to 2nd spot, but Will Power is the fastest in this session. Marty?
And guys, Will Power coming to pit road right now. He wasn't very happy on the first lap, but of course when you go out on cold tires, the chassis feels a lot different. But he is coming to pit road right now. Did get to P1. They haven't had a whole lot of conversation since then, but he did express some displeasure with how the car was handling, at least on that first lap.
Well, he should be pretty happy with it, with it right now.
Yeah.
I mean, he laid down a pretty good lap. I mean, Franchitti is right there, right behind him.
As as you can see, Will is on the red alternates, and there is Dario Franchitti. Now, if you viewed the St. Petersburg race, you're going to have to keep track very closely because we have a lot of different color combinations for this race. Dario Franchitti has Clorox on the side of his car. And there is Ryan Hunter-Reay, who looks a lot different from last year, but the same as in St. Petersburg. Ryan Hunter-Reay currently is in ninth. Yeah, of the 13 that have been out. So the top 6 right now are Power, Franchitti, Briscoe, Serbia, Castroneves, and Rahal.
Rahal just bumped Silvestro out of the top 6. Ooh, locked up that right front real hard there.
There's no question that he views this as the money lap. Anytime you start lighting up tires on the brakes and start getting power down oversteer, he is really trying to bring this one in.
And pretty much you have to throw that one away now. Now he's got some traffic in front of him.
Car immediately in front of him is Oriol Serbia, driving for Newman Haas Racing this year, who had a very good test here about a month ago.
And you talk about different colors. The first car through the screen is Helio Castroneves in new colors for him in the AAA red, white, and blue. So they're using all the road as well.
I think he's going to back off and get a gap because he's kind of, he's going to come in now. Make sure he didn't flat spot that right front tire.
There is Simona. She is trying to get into the 6. She's 7th right now. Isn't going to do it like that.
And you mentioned about checking for a flat spot. If he did, there's nothing you can do. Unlike last year, you could come in and put another set of tires on. You have to run the 4 tires you roll out, as we talked about, new for this season. So it really puts a lot of pressure on the drivers to not make little mistakes.
Simona trying to bump her way back into the top 6.
Graham Rahal in 6th position, ran a 112.1, and wow,
he's getting everything out of that car, I'll tell you that.
Simona is a 112.2, so she doesn't need a whole lot, but she needs about a 1/10 of a second, and there's the line. Let's see if she moves up.
She improved, but not enough.
Yep.
She improved on her, I think her last time was a 12.5. We're at 12.2 that lap.
So she remains in 7th position here as the clock ticks down on this 15-minute session.
You're going to have to crank off at 11 and get in that top 6 now. Watch her get sideways out of this corner here. Just hear you can hear the tires lose grip and light up.
That's a very tricky part of the racetrack. Still on the lap here.
She's well off her pace, though.
Okay.
4/10 off at that.
I think she's got everything out. She was out of those set of tires right there.
And that is the idea behind the alternates, is that they have a sweet spot and they are really quick, and then they would fall off quicker than would the blacks. That's the whole idea of having 2 different tire compounds that you use in the races. You hope that people are going to be on different strategies, and then that develops some passing.
And so here are the 6 that will advance to the 2nd round of qualifying. Not surprisingly, on the top of the list is Will Power with a time of 111.66. Dario Franchitti also will move on, so will Ryan Briscoe, Oriol Serbia, Helio Castroneves, and Graham Rahal. No surprise, Will Power looking good here after round 1, session 1 of qualifying at Barber Motorsports Park. The Eyes on IndyCar series on Versus today. Pete Pole qualifying from Barber Motorsports Park near Birmingham, Alabama. We showed you Group 1, Round 1. Now here are highlights from Group 2 in the first round.
And setting the mark early, James Hinchcliffe, his first race of the season. He's going to be with Newman Haas for the rest of the North American rounds. He went up to P1, but shortly thereafter, Justin Wilson. Yes, new charter colors for Justin Wilson. But he got himself at that point up to P2. Then Scott Dixon only did 2 laps. A warm-up lap, and pow, goes up to P1. He's saving those tires for later. Nice job, Scotty. And then, at this point, no Andretti cars have qualified out of either group until the conclusion of this lap. Marco Andretti, on his very last lap, it took him 5. He hung it out and got himself a transfer spot.
So here are the drivers who advanced to round 2 in Group 1. Will Power, Dario Franchitti, Ryan Briscoe, Oriol Serbia, Elio Castroneves, and Graham Rahal. In Group number 2, round 1, Dixon, Wilson, Andretti, Hinchcliffe, Alex Tagliani, and Takuma Sato. Down to Marty Snyder.
Well, Bob, that lap for Marco Andretti almost didn't happen. He was going to pull in the lap before and thought, you know what, I'll give it one more lap. And as Jan mentioned, he got that on his last lap, jumping from 8th to 3rd. He said he was on pins and needles the entire time, especially the back end of the course. Very loose coming off the corners. They took a fairly big swing at the chassis here, so we'll see how that works out. The other thing that a lot of people were talking about, clouds now starting to roll over the racetrack. That should improve overall grip. Lindy.
I asked Graham Rahal before he got back in the car, how was it? He said it felt even better than this morning's session. So where does he think he will end up? He's pretty confident he's going to get out of this round because he feels like he was in the more competitive of the 2 groups in the first segment. We will see what he does. Bob Graham is out on sticker reds.
There's Graham Rahal in the 38 car. Now, one thing I want to mention is that Rafael Matos, Wally, missed transferring by 7/10,000ths of a second.
That's not even funny. I mean, I don't even know how do you even measure that?
Yeah, exactly.
That's an eyelash.
See some telemetry up there on the top. We haven't introduced the most recent addition to the Versus team for the Eyes on IndyCar series. We shall do so right now, and that is Robin Miller.
Boys, how are we doing?
Good.
Listen, I'm telling you one thing. I've never seen a crew happy to be 18th in qualifying. The DJ Viso's guys are drinking champagne right now because it's still got 4 wheels and tires on it. And if he was a baseball player, he'd be an all-star because he's crashed in 5 out of 9 sessions. So the most amazing thing is this guy's shown speed for the last years, but he just doesn't seem to learn from his mistakes. And yesterday, I mean, you can't, there's only a couple places you can really crash hard here, and he did it, as you see right there. And so he, you know, at St. Pete, this guy was in and out of on the hooker. He was on the wrecker. He'd like to have a hooker, sorry. He was on the wrecker most of the time, in and out of the pits, because he kept crashing. And his crew, you know, if you lose your crew 2 races into the season, I mean, it's all about confidence and guys wanting to work all night for you. They don't want to work all night rebuilding your car during the day, and that's what they've been doing for him. So they're happy he's 18th. They're thrilled that they still got 4 wheels on the thing. And tomorrow they're going to try and get him through the race without crashing.
Viso will start in 18th position tomorrow. All right, in this session, so far the fastest is Castroneves, followed by Andretti, Franchitti, Hinchcliffe, Power, and Dixon. 2 of the cars have not had a time yet.
Well, read through that group. Castroneves, Andretti, Franchitti, Hinchcliffe. Doing his first race, Power, Dixon. Hinchcliffe, that is awesome.
Well, you remember when we were down here a month or so ago for the test, he was very, very impressive.
But still, as a rookie, and you hear those names, first event, and I know this group hasn't concluded, but that is a great start for Hinchcliffe.
He finished 2nd in the Firestone Indy Light Series points last year with 3 wins at Long Beach, Edmonton, and Chicagoland Speedway.
Hey, Will Power's pushing it. Watch this right here. You want to see a car get sideways? You want to see what oversteer is all about? That's oversteer right there. That's a great save right there.
Took one hand off the wheel. Then I might have to have a crossover here.
Power is 9th so far. early in the session. Remember, this is only a 10-minute session, and we've already had 8 minutes expire, so less than 2 to go.
And Scott Dixon laid down a good lap. That's 11.4. He was 11.8 the last time, so he's picked it up. And like Marty said, this cloud cover could pick the times up a little bit.
10 poles and 12 front row starts in 14 races for Will Power.
And Will is doing what we would say gapping himself here. And now up over the top of this hill, he's going to be at full song starting. This is, you want to have exit speed now. He's thinking to himself, everything's got to be perfect.
And he moves to P1.
Okay, so that was finishing. Nice finish there, Will. I thought he was spooling up for one. He was finishing a great lap.
But now Dixon takes back P1, so it's Dixon and Power 1-2. Briscoe, Castroneves, Franchitti, and Wilson are the others in the top 6. Quite a battle between Dixon and Power there on one lap. Here is Dario Franchitti. He is currently 5th quick. Hinchcliffe, that we were just talking about, is outside the top 6. So is Andretti, Serbia, Rahal, Sato, and Tagliani.
Looks like he got off it. Is still on a flyer? It seemed like he got off the throttle there.
Well, you have to remember, and we see Hinchcliffe now, and Bob, you just mentioned that now he's dropped just out of the top 6. Obviously, he's going to hear that on the radio. He's going to have his data points on his dash. What I mean by that is all the way through, every time you go across a segment, it's going to give you a reading on your dash, minus 0.7, plus 0.2, whatever, and it will be based upon your fastest lap. Now, he's backed off now, looking for a gap. You can hear his spotter.
The checkered is out, though.
So it's over for Hinchcliffe.
That's all well and good if you have time to look at that steering wheel, but around this place, you don't have much time to look at the steering wheel.
So Hinchcliffe is not going to make the transfer into the Firestone Fast Six. Came close, wound up in 7th. As the 10-minute period has expired here in round number 2.
Goes fast, doesn't it?
It does.
Time goes fast. You don't have much time to lay down a couple of good laps.
Scott Dixon going to be the fastest in this second segment with a lap at 1:11.304.
And Oriol Servia just in. Oriol Servia has got himself. He just bumped Dario Franchitti.
Is out. Wow.
So we're looking at the two teammates. We were looking at Hinchcliffe, who was thinking, so close. And his teammate, Oriol Servia, bumps out. Wow. So a perfect weekend for Franchitti in round 1. Now you don't make the top 6.
That is incredible.
It's a humbling sport, isn't it?
It is. Yeah.
Wow.
But Oriol Servia is the other driver besides Hinchcliffe for Newman Haas. And as we said, both of them had very good tests about a month ago. All right, here are the drivers now who will go to the Firestone Fast Six to determine the starting lineup for tomorrow. Dixon, Power, Castroneves, Briscoe, Wilson, and Oriol Servia. We've got a lot more to go. Dario Franchitti did not make it into the Firestone Fast Six.
Welcome back to Barber Motorsports Park, just outside of Birmingham, Alabama. We are getting ready to start the Firestone Fast Six for tomorrow's Honda Indy Grand Prix of Alabama. Thanks again for joining us here today on Versus. While we have a moment, let's talk about what's coming up tomorrow. Versus has devoted 5 hours of coverage for the IZOD IndyCar Series on weekends when Firestone Indy Lights competes, like this weekend. So tomorrow we're on the air at 1 o'clock Eastern Time with Firestone Indy Lights, and we'll keep you up to date on any breaking IZOD IndyCar Series stories throughout that. Then in between races, it's inside the IZOD IndyCar Series. We'll have over an hour and a half of coverage getting you set for about a 3:45 green flag for the IZOD IndyCar Series race coming up tomorrow. So 5 hours. Make sure you join us tomorrow at 1 o'clock Eastern here on Versus. Well, last year, Will Power had what seemed to be an insurmountable lead late in the championship, a 59-point advantage with 4 races ago. Dario Franchitti was able to erase that mark and win the championship. So Power finished second, but he's certainly not going to be satisfied with a runner-up finish this season.
remember who won the Indianapolis 500, and you remember who won the championship. Those are the things that you remember.
Problem for our championship leader. He slapped the wall. Will Power is going to lose the championship here tonight.
To beat the Ganassi guys is going to be as tough as it was in 2010.
Before he thought he could do it, now he knows he can do it.
I would be satisfied if I won the championship, no question. I wouldn't be satisfied with second again, no way.
And Will Power is quick again here this weekend. No surprise as we get set for the Firestone Fast Six. Here's a look at who we're going to see battling for the front of the field tomorrow. Oriol Servia of Newman Haas gets in. He finishes just ahead of Dario Franchitti. Then it's Wilson, Briscoe. Elio was the third quickest in segment 2. Then Will Power going for his second straight pole to start this season. And Scott Dixon the quickest, but all those times are wiped off. We start all over. Let's check in now with Marty Snyder.
And the man on the outside looking in by 16 one-thousandths of a second. Dario, that doesn't seem fair, does it, Dario? And what did you tell me before we started qualifying?
Yeah, I said to you, if we, you try and find a 10th somewhere, sometimes you end up losing 3, and that's exactly what I did. I tried to find a 10th in the hairpin and lost a fair chunk. So yeah, I didn't do a good job in that session. We changed a couple of things on the Clorox car, but still I didn't do a good job. Had I just completed a clean lap, I think would have been in. That's the hand we're dealt, and we'll try and get from 7th to 1st tomorrow.
All right, go enjoy the rest of your Saturday.
Thanks.
Lindy?
Well, Justin Wilson and the Dreyer and Reinbold team had plenty of information from the test to work on. He said this morning before he got in the car, we're very close to where we want to be. We need a little bit more grip, a little bit more balance, but he says, I think we're pretty close, and you can see they seem to be doing pretty well. Before he just rolled out of here, they did make a little bit of adjustment to the front wing, and Bob, last year, Justin Wilson started 11th.
And he is one of the first on the track for this third round, the final round of knockout qualifying featuring the Firestone Fast Six. Couple of statistics here for you. This is Will Power's 15th consecutive appearance in the Firestone Fast Six. Dixon is next closest with 6. And Dario, who did not make it, that broke a string of 6 straight Fast Six appearances. Now this is Elio's 27th time to reach the Firestone Fast Six. That's most in IndyCar Series history, followed by Dixon with 25. 15 consecutive appearances by Will Power. That is a very, very impressive statistic. And we thought that 7 10,000ths of a second was not very much, and Dario missed by less than that.
Those are the first time I've ever heard those numbers.
Yeah.
Those are pretty close numbers.
I'm telling you.
And Dario, really, that was a very interesting point, and that he had, in fact, said that to Marty earlier, that when you get out there and you search for a 10th, if you miss it, you can lose 3. And here in this one, he says the hairpin, that's turn 5. And we see Justin Wilson in now. If he tried a little extra to get a 10th, and here you talk about that 16 10,000ths of a second, you're thinking, you could see it in his body English. He wants that one back.
Already 2 minutes have expired in this 10-minute session. Barber Motorsports Park, 2.3 miles in length, and there are 15 turns on the course. Tomorrow's race is 90 laps, equaling 207 miles. But first of all, we have to establish who is going to start at the front of the field. We know who they are, we just don't know the order, and that's what we're establishing right now. Justin Wilson, the first to officially turn in a time and speed of 1:12.87 on lap number 1.
And you know what's interesting about this, I mean, normally for qualifying, you go out and you scare yourself really bad once, but you have to keep doing it on this deal, you know? Qualifying is all about squeezing every inch out of that race car as you can, which means that you're pushing it over the edge. And these guys are just, they gotta continue to do it. And this is a difficult track, like, you know, you say. You can go in there and make one little mistake and lose that time, and you have to throw that lap away. You don't have much time to get another one down.
And Wilson is 3 tenths up right now.
Let's hear from Robin Miller down on pit lane.
Boys, you know, usually in these Fast Six, it's the 3 Penske cars and the 2 Ganassi guys. And you have a guy like Justin Wilson or Graham Ray, Hall or Tagliani, somebody squeezes in. But I think the story today is Oriol Servia, who didn't have a ride until about a month ago, and they threw the Newman-Haas deal together. He makes the Fast Six, and his teammate James Hinchcliffe, who misses the first race because he didn't have a sponsorship money, he almost makes it in his first time ever in an IndyCar. And I don't think you can say enough for how those guys have pulled this thing together. And Servia is probably one of the most underrated drivers in the paddock and has been for the last decade.
Trouble, we got Wilson around.
Justin Wilson spins, keeps the car running.
Well, if they weren't flat spotted, there's not much left on the rears anyway. So.
Well, he had crossed the line, thankfully, so he was starting. This could be another one of these looking for a 10th and losing 3, except you can lose more than 3 here, Justin. Look at that, power down, and immediately he goes to lock up the brakes to make sure that he at least keeps it in the middle of the racetrack, Wally.
Yeah, we've seen a lot, you know, the last day or so, we've seen a lot of cars loose on entry. We saw Briscoe have some trouble yesterday with that, too. So it's a tricky place. And when you're loose getting into the corner, it's really hard to save a race car. Because you're turning in, and once that rear goes, it's just, there's not enough steering wheel in there to catch it. At least when you're loose getting off the corner, you can control that with the throttle. But when you're going in, you're off the throttle, you're usually on the brakes, and there's no way to drive out of a loose when you're getting into the corner.
Here's Will Power. Elio Castroneves has moved to P1 with only 2 so far turning in a lap time and speed. Power is about to do so. Marty?
Yeah, Bob, speaking of guys with a little oversteer, we saw that earlier with Will Power, didn't we? These are the tires that he ran in the last session. They only had 3 laps on him when he went out on the racetrack. A lot of guys are using the tires they used in the first session earlier today to give them more time to cool down. Will Power's team went with the tires that were on in the last run, and he too, as you guys have mentioned, has been very, very loose all day long.
It's just, you mentioned earlier the elevation change here, and that also helps get a car loose. When you're coming up over a hill and you're turning, it wants to make the rear of the car light and lose grip. That's another thing these guys fight on a racetrack like this.
You know, we were talking about qualifying and how it is so stressful. Wait till we get to Indianapolis.
Yeah, well, that's a whole different ball game there.
And once again, Versus will have extensive coverage of both qualifying days for the 500-mile race at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway this year. The 100th celebration, 1911 was the first 500-mile race won by Ray Haroon. And, you know, I remember that day so well. Here's Scott Dixon, Castroneves, Wilson, and Will Power are 1, 2, 3.
Why we watch Dixon, Will Power is on his hot lap. Let's see what Dixon's first one. Remember, he's only done 5 hot laps out of 2 sessions. He starts off with a meager 1:17.9. He's still getting pulled up. Meanwhile, Will Power is poised to go to the top at the moment. He's 4/10 up on his previous time, and he just shot right through the middle of that wiggle, Wally.
Castroneves up to quick spot. But one thing about Dixon, like you've been saying, Jan, he usually goes out and does 1 lap and then lays the 2nd lap down. He's made it look really easy today.
But Power is now 0.6 of a second quicker than his previous best. And he's getting to the timeline.
There it is. And he moves to P1.
By a bunch.
Yeah, by about
0.6 of a 6.6 seconds. That is, wow. We were just talking about 16 10 thousandths and so on, but this is 0.6. In road course terms, that
is a bunch.
A big gap.
All right, here's Scott Dixon now. He is currently 5th on the list, Marty.
Marty, you got something on the 9?
Yeah, Wally, real quick, the tires that Scott Dixon is running, those are the ones he ran in the first session, just 3 laps on them. So we'll see if that makes a difference. They had an extra 20 minutes to cool those tires. Will that make a difference here in the Fast Six?
Takes him to P2. Yeah.
But still, I mean, there's a... Okay, there we go. Ryan Briscoe to 2nd. He closes in on Power.
And Will Power has another one that he's going for a slight improvement.
Remember, this is the final session of qualifying, the Firestone Fast Six. We know who's starting up front. We just don't know what order. We're on board with Will Power once again, who's P1.
He had 11.5. Now he has an 11.4.
11.4. Wow.
Which gives him a gap. Well, actually, his gap now, because we have Briscoe that filled that gap, he's almost 3/10 faster than Briscoe.
Less than 90 seconds remaining in this 10-minute period. It's Power, Briscoe, Dixon, Castroneves, Wilson, and Serbia. There's Elio. Not too far behind Dixon.
Sometimes that helps.
Yeah.
It's nice to have somebody to chase. Castroneves up to third spot.
And Elio probably wouldn't be too thrilled about that, because what happened was Dixon slowed down to gap himself. So while Elio is finishing a lap, Dixon is starting one. And anytime you start seeing you're closing in on somebody when there's only 6 cars on the track, you're like, hang on, buddy.
There's the Telemundo-sponsored machine of Oriol Serbia from Newman Haas Racing, number 2. He's currently in 6th position, hoping to move up in the qualifying order here, the starting order for tomorrow's race, the Honda Indy Grand Prix of Alabama. Serbia started 15th and finished 9th at St. Petersburg 2 weeks ago. And we are about to end this session in 2-1. And that is it. The checkered flag is out. Cars, of course, will be able to cross the line, but that was Oriol's final lap, and he did not improve, so he will start in 6th spot.
It's a little bit quicker lap, but he didn't. Yeah.
Dixon moves up to 3rd. And here comes Ryan Briscoe. Let's see if he improves. He will stay at P2. And Justin Wilson is about to complete his lap. There it is. And he will stay in position 5. Power, Briscoe, Dixon, Castroneves, Wilson, and Serbia. That's the way they will start in tomorrow's race, and we'll talk with the guy who has won the pole for tomorrow's race when we return to Barber Motorsports Park in Alabama.
IZOD IndyCar qualifying on Versus is presented by Peak Performance Products. When you peak, you win.
Welcome back to Barber Motorsports Park outside of Birmingham, Alabama, as we get set for the Honda Indy Grand Prix of Alabama. We are set. Our Peak Pole Qualifying Award winner is with Lindy Thaxton.
And Will Power getting his 2nd check of the season in just 2 races. This is his 18th pole. And Will, I want to talk to you about last year. You were pole position as well. Made that early pit stop, affected your strategy, ultimately lost the race. How does that affect your strategy tomorrow?
Yeah, I think, you know, I mean, before the race last year, we discussed and we weren't going to pit on that lap if the yellow fell. So this year, I think we're going to have a good think about it when there's no emotion involved before the race. And we know that strategy is so important around here because you can't pass.
We talked at the beginning that even though you're at the top of the charts, you're really not too happy with the car. How does it feel, and what do you want to see different about it for tomorrow?
Yeah, it's just really difficult to get a balance around here. The Reds, the Firestone Reds really help the car. I mean, it masks problems. The tyre's so good. I think we've got to be very aware of how those tyres are going to go off and see if we can get that Verizon 12 car up the front.
And we saw you do a big oversteer in turn 2. Good catch there.
Was that? Yeah. I backed off after that. I thought, no, the car's too loose. Tyres aren't hot enough yet. But, man, I'm just waiting until tomorrow. I really want to win this race.
We'll see you then. Will Power starting number 1 tomorrow. Marty?
Scott Dixon will start 4th tomorrow, and your car was so loose and the track was so slick. Were you afraid to push it any harder than you did?
Yeah, we were definitely trying. You know, the target car was extremely fast. I think we ended up with the quickest time of qualifying, but obviously in the wrong session. So, you know, the second run on tyres for us at the end, the car was just so loose. I couldn't get into the corner. I couldn't get the power down. So something that we'll definitely have to look at for second run tyres in the future. But all all in all, not a bad day. Obviously, would have liked to have been on the front row.
Let me correct myself. You will start third tomorrow, which is good. Are you worried about the fall off on the tires? Because it seems to be pretty dramatic, doesn't it?
It can be. I think, as you said before, the weather conditions can definitely pay, sort of havoc on how the car handles. And we had it yesterday as well with a bit of the rain and then the drying session and things like that. It seems to be able to make the car understeer a lot or oversteer really quickly. And you saw that even with 5 minutes to go in that session. So we'll have to keep an eye on that, and hopefully we have a good balance tomorrow, but pretty happy.
Congratulations on a great run today.
Thanks, man.
All right, Kevin.
Marty, thank you. We are ready for round 2 of the 2011 IZOD IndyCar Series schedule, and here's how they will line up. For the 16th time between Champ Car and IndyCar, Will Power starts from the front. He won 8 poles last year, the most since Danny Sullivan won 9 on the way to the championship in the late 80s. And then his teammate Ryan Briscoe on the outside of the front row. We roll through and see the middle of the pack. Takuma Sato, Simona Di Silvestro starting 13th after a 4th place finish last week. Take a look at Ryan Hunter-Reay, see if he can work his way through the field. And Sebastian Bourdais, who did not start at St. Pete, looks to make his first series start. Charlie Kimball, the rookie. And Tony Kanaan has had a rough weekend so far after finishing on the podium last week. He will start 24th. There's your 26-car field for tomorrow. Let's check it back in with Marty.
Well, it was an interesting qualifying session for Justin Wilson, who will start 5th tomorrow. Let's first of all talk about the spin and what exactly happened there.
I kind of set what I would consider a pretty good time for that stage, and it's about all I had. So I was just trying to be a little bit cheeky and see if I can sneak a bit more on entry, and the bike wasn't happy. So, lost the rear, had a spin, but I don't think it cost us too much. We'd already set our quickest time at that point.
A greedy driver looking for more time. Imagine that, right? Yeah,
exactly. You always want that little bit more, and I thought, it's one of those corners, it's so long, it's worth trying to sneak a little bit more out of it, and 1 mile an hour for that length of time adds up, so I thought I'd try it.
Real quick, you and I were talking about the rest earlier this week. How is it done? You said you wanted to get in the car and feel it out.
Yeah, and it's been pretty good. I mean, I'm definitely feeling it now. The team actually asked me, what do I need to go quick? And I said 2 hands would be a lot easier.
Yeah, exactly.
So there's a couple of moments there where really, you're fighting the car, and I just can't quite keep up. It's okay. We'll stroll through the race.
Wearing a brace on that left wrist, he'll gut it out tomorrow.
All right, let's talk first of all about what Will Power said when we talked to him, and that is how difficult it is to set a car up for this racetrack, and that's the challenge between now and tomorrow morning.
Although he's like 0.3 of a second faster than second place, he's got a little bit of a cushion to back off a little bit and make that car comfortable.
And I think, Bob, we heard something there. Qualifying is about a perfect car. The race is about the car when it's not perfect. It's going to be about managing when the conditions change, so a big challenge tomorrow.
And don't forget, everybody qualified on the reds today, so they will have to deal with the other tires by tomorrow afternoon. Everybody has to run at least 2 competitive laps on the black tires now, the primary tires. Coming up next, U.S. ski and snowboarding events. Be sure to tune in tomorrow for the Honda Indy Grand Prix of Alabama. Coverage begins with the Firestone Indy Light Series race at 1 o'clock Eastern. For more information on the IZOD IndyCar Series, go to Versus.com. Will Power wins the pole for tomorrow's race. We'll see you at 1 o'clock Eastern tomorrow for IndyCar racing on Versus.